Welcome to HDTV. You now rocking with your boy. Guns are a way to exercise power. How the idea of overthrowing the government became mainstream. Josh Horowitz has been an American gun control activist for nearly 30 years. In 2009, he co-wrote a book warning that the idea of armed revolt against the government was at the center of the U.S. gun rights movement. Now, after a year that has seen heavily armed men show up at state capitals in Virginia, Michigan, Idaho, and elsewhere to confront Democratic lawmakers over gun control and coronavirus restrictions, more Americans are taking gun owners' rhetoric about tyrants seriously. Some of the same armed protesters who showed up at Michigan State's house and at a pro-gun rally this summer were charged last week with conspiring to kidnap Michigan's governor and put her on trial for tyranny. Other members of the Boogaloo movement have allegedly murdered law enforcement officers in California and plotted acts of violence across the country in hopes of sparking a civil war. Horowitz spoke to The Guardian about how mainstream the idea of insurrection has become in American politics and why lawmakers have failed to challenge it for decades. The conversation has been condensed and edited for clarity. You argue in your book that the idea of violent insurrection against the American government is at the heart of American gun culture. What do you mean by that? There's a belief among some American gun owners that the Second Amendment is highly individualized and was placed in the Constitution as an individual right to fight government tyranny. Therefore, each individual has the right to own whatever and however many weapons they want, free from any government interference. A licensing law or a universal background check law would mean the government knows who got a gun. If you believe there's an individual right to insurrection, you can't have any gun laws. The drive to purchase semi-automatic assault weapons like AR-15s, those weapons are often not purchased for self-defense but for fear of government tyranny. When the NRA says vote freedom first, it's not vote self-defense first. They mean you get to decide when the government becomes tyrannical. The problem is that one person's tyranny is another universal health care bill. Is this concept of insurrection as the reason Americans should have unrestricted gun rights a very fringe idea? It's not every gun owner, but this movement is way larger than people think, and guns are now seen by a large portion of that community as a tool for political dissent. When National Rifle Association CEO Wayne LaPierre says things like the guys with the guns make the rules, or politicians and elected officials say, we will rely on Second Amendment remedies. What they mean is that people with guns will, in fact, set the political agenda and settle political disputes. That is a profoundly undemocratic idea. As Abe Lincoln famously said, any appeal from the ballot box to the bullet box must fail. We are a country based on the rule of law. Guns don't make you a super citizen with the ability to make special rules or have special political influence because you happen to be armed. Where does this insurrectionary idea come from? When did it take hold? The idea that individuals have the right to fight against tyranny is as old as the Republic, but you can trace the modern incarnation of this principle to the early 1990s and the rise of the militia movement during Bill Clinton's presidency. When national gun violence prevention laws, including the assault weapons ban and background checks, were instituted, there's a path from Ruby Ridge and Waco, deadly standoffs between citizens and federal agents, both involving illegal gun charges, to the Oklahoma City bombing. The Michigan militia is where Timothy McVeigh, the Oklahoma City bomber, got this start. He was making his living at gun shows. He bought fully into the gun rights agenda, and he ended up killing a lot of kids. I started to pick up the resurgence of this idea in the mid-2000s at the end of Bush presidency and the beginning of Obama's presidency. How does racism play into this idea of insurrection and its place in U.S. politics? There is a big racial element to this. White men especially are feeling that the political reins of power are pulling away from them, and their grip on power is falling away. Guns are a way to exercise power. Let's face it. Power over policy, power over people. You first published Guns, Democracy, and the Insurrectionist idea in 2009. What kind of response did it get? People didn't react the way that I hoped by saying this is going to be a big deal unless we move forcefully to oppose it. Instead, a lot of elected officials, included a lot of Democratic elected officials, acquisite to the idea of an insurrectionary Second Amendment. People running for president in 2004 and 2008 would use lines like, the Second Amendment isn't for hunting. It has to do with protecting ourselves, our homes, our families, and our country from tyranny. Nobody followed up with it. What do you mean? You think it's okay to shoot politicians? This year, we saw the Michigan legislator taking over, the Idaho legislator taking over, and it's like there's no opprobrium. There's a sort of boys will be boys response. Why has politicians' response to rhetoric about violence revolt been so muted? I think there's the idea that if this really happened, the U.S. Army would just mow these people down. Oh, it'll be suicide if they did that. But the U.S. military should not be deployed in civilian places to begin with. What are we going to do? Have tanks on our own soil? We're not going to do that. The other thing is that this movement is really well armed. There's a lot of firepower in civilian hands. 50 caliber sniper rifles, AR-15s, AK-47s. If they really did it, it would be very, very complicated. How significant are the numbers of U.S. military members and police who personally believe in this insurrectionist idea themselves? This year, U.S. military veterans and active duty service members have been charged in a number of violent plots, including some that were allegedly designed to spark a civil war. There are some elements of law enforcement that are sympathetic to this, a lot are not, especially those in leadership. I have friends in the military, and too many of them, this idea is complete anathema. But a lot of the demographics in the military are young white men who like guns. I do think the vast majority of law enforcement in the military will do their duty, but that doesn't mean that everyone will. What shifts have you seen since 2009 and how insurrectionism is playing out? There's been a huge change in the last 4 years. Since Trump came to power, he doesn't condemn violence. What he said about Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer was awful when he asked about a peaceful transition of power, and he hedges. I believe it's because he thinks he has a private militia that will back him up. The insurrectionist idea is about fighting government tyranny, but it would be especially dangerous if it became in service of particular officials, and that's what you're seeing now. What's also changed, the amount of weapons that the boys have these days is obscene. The number of AR-15s and high-capacity magazines and assault weapons they have should scare anybody. Are you worried that there could be a major insurrection against the U.S. government? Yes, my fear is that there will be a violence if the election is contested or if it looks like Trump's losing. I worry that there will be efforts at intimidating election officials and voters. I've always been concerned about the one-off person, the lone wolf who takes these ideas to the max. I am much more concerned now about organized efforts to subvert elections, democratic power courts. You issued a report focused on how states can ban gun carrying at polling places. Are you concerned about what could happen on election day itself? I don't think there's going to be widespread violence at the polls. I think there will be places where people with guns will attempt to intimidate voters, but not by shooting or anything like that. And I think those places will be relatively rare. It's really important that each polling place knows what their rights are. But I think there's been enough time to get them up to speed. I don't want people to be scared. The ultimate response to the insurrectionary Second Amendment is to go vote. What do you think should be done now in response to all of this public conversation about insurrection? Number one, there needs to be a clear public response that people who exercise this right are not patriots, but traitors. The second piece is a policy response. We need to limit access to assault weapons. As soon as legislators open in 2021, they should ban guns at polling places. I would like to see them banning open carry everywhere. Peaceful protesters are now routinely intimidated by armed insurrectionists. The way they intimidate people is by openly carrying weapons. We have proved we can't handle that as a society. And people who have the bully pulpit need to be careful not to endorse the idea of insurrectionary Second Amendment. Even if you believe in an individual right to own a firearm, the purpose of that right cannot be to kill government officials. Have you seen any tipping point in how Democratic politicians are now responding to this kind of insurrectionist rhetoric? Let me be completely clear. The biggest problem is Republican elected officials and the Republican who consistently use the insurrectionary idea and cheer on this type of behavior. While I wish Democrats would stand up and not just acquiesce, the Republican Party has bought into a Second Amendment remedies, idea that is now a danger, a grave danger to America. The Republican elected officials in Virginia thought the gun rights march on the state capitol was the greatest thing since sliced bread. There are plenty of Republican officials who just think this is great. Now, after reading that, I basically was reading the conversation between John Horowitz, him and a guy from The Guardian, a reporter. They were basically a guy from The Guardian, which I believe is they don't have a name here, but he basically was talking to Mr. Horowitz, Horowitz, about the insurrection idea and everything and taking over the government. To me, we're going to have a civil war. Doesn't matter whether we have Trump in office or not, we're going to have a civil war because this country has spent too much time protecting other folks that are not of the black complexion, which are black Americans. We're not we're black Americans. If you were born in America, you're black. The black stands for your descendants were black, so you are black and you were born in America. They want you to say African America because you're from Africa. No, if your parents are from Africa in the present time, then you are African American and you were born here. So that's what I'm trying to say. We have to understand the ideology as well as we have to understand the wording of things. To me, Horowitz is telling the truth. It's like, look, we should have a right to carry guns with laws or not without laws because it's the Second Amendment. You are allowed to bear arms to protect your household, to protect the people you love. You shouldn't have to go through getting this done and getting a license to know. No, they want you to get a license to carry because they want to know who's armed. So then if they're coming to your house to pull you out, which they could do martial law, come through your house and rip you out of there if they suspect that you're doing a terrorist act or you're doing something that's unconstitutional, they can have a bunch of people at your door and they could do like they did Breonna Taylor. Just come into your house, without a warrant and shoot your place up and then say you shot at them. So this is things you have to think about as Americans and as people. We have got to smarten up. Pink folk, you guys have to also think about this. They could, if once they're done with black people, they're going to come after you. They just use you guys as a tool so you could push their agenda. They don't care about you either. They don't care about you. You guys are above the barrel, but they don't care about you. We're the shit on the bottom of the barrel, but they want to exterminate us. And it's going to be a civil war because the country is getting tired of all this division and all this going at it with each other. Now, I disagree with Horowitz on this. Donald Trump, to me, he's going to be the cause of this happening. Either him or Biden, whoever they put as a president, it's going to be a civil war. This country is not being fair to the people who live in it. They always want to crack down on certain things. Then they're raising taxes on certain things where they know that certain color of people can't really sustain in those areas that they're raising the tax on. Then you got gentrification going on where they're kicking black people out of their original homes and putting them somewhere else. America is a mess. And the problem is it's too much trying to help the rich and kill off the poor and put strangleholds on the middle class. But the middle class has been dead for years. You're either rich or you're poor. And it's the truth. But to me, gun laws, we should be putting vices on people who are carrying guns. I agree with Horowitz on this. Open carry, you need to put that away. We need to get rid of that because citizens, just like the kid in Michigan, when he went out to where I think it was in Illinois, yeah, it was in Illinois, then he went to Michigan. What he did was basically kill those people who were protesting, which I told you they were white because they didn't say they were black. They said that people. If they would have said black people, then you would have known they were black. But he showed you can't carry. And plus, he was underage in both states to carry a gun. But he's not going to get charged because he's a good old pink guy. Pink boy. They're going to put him probably through some counseling and he'll be out in about 4 or 5 weeks. But we're shown that we cannot do open carry. We cause endangerment for those, we endanger, those around us and those who are innocent bystanders. And the laws, to me, the laws have really, they've been trying to use it to hurt people who trying to get guns. And they're trying to take away the guns so they could be, so it's easier for them to come into your home and take you out of it, where they're not going against resistant control. But listen, if they take away the gun charges, the gun laws, people still gonna carry guns because you're dropping the guns in the poor areas, which is the black neighborhoods, for them to kill each other. And you think white people aren't gonna have guns? You crazy. You are crazy if you think white people ain't gonna have no guns. They gonna have guns all day. Even if you take the law away, they still gonna have guns. They still gonna have assault rifles because there's other places like the black market and other places you can get these things from. A guy may know a guy in the military. A guy from the military may sell some weapons to some people just to get some extra money because he got the connect who could go get those weapons. You have to think about this. But let me know in the comment section, what do you think? Do you think that the gun laws is the problem, or do you think it's the people who's carrying the guns that are the problem? Let me know in the comment section. Like, comment, subscribe, share this, please, because when I make these type of videos, they don't share this because they don't want you as the people to know about what's going on in the world. They want you just to be stuck on sports all day and being dumb. Seriously. So please like, comment, subscribe, and share this. Hit the notification bell to receive upcoming notifications on new content coming out. And if you want to donate to the page, it's up to you. If you would like to donate to the page, cash at me at welcome to HDTV. That's the word welcome, the number 2, HDIITV. And thank you for listening. We out. Live boy.